podcast. We are here with your hosts, Dave Reed, Ryan Wilkinson, and Joey Gallo.
Welcome into the NSFW Dynasty podcast. We are back after a couple week hiatus because our schedules got blown up, but we are back. I'm your host, Dave Reed, joined by my co-host, Ryan Wilkinson and Joey Gallo.
Took a little break, but we made it back, and hopefully we have some good content for you guys.
Yeah, it's crazy that trying to think back as to like why we weren't able to do the pod the last 2 weeks. Like I know both times it was very valid reasons, and if you ask me if I remember, I'm like, yeah, I don't really know.
Yeah.
You know, it's just life
got in the way.
Life is very crazy and chaotic right now, but you know, we're here on the eve of my return to Las Vegas after 5 years.
Forgot about that. Joey died there once.
It's a big weekend.
The last time was my bachelor party?
Yeah.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
5 years.
There you go.
And we'll be staying at the same hotel and
running it back.
Basically running it back.
Going to be walking through the same lobby where you lost an eyebrow.
I wish that I could like actually recall the spot so that I could point it out and be like, this is exactly where it is. But I have no literal idea where the spot was. Maybe when I'm in the moment, it will like come back to me. I'm like anticipating there's going to be several times over the course of this trip where like just seeing something triggers a memory. But we will see. Hopefully, this will be some good content for you guys to consume before the weekend, and there'll be lots of bets floating around. So
for sure, and I feel like this is coming full circle again to face your fears of where things went down.
100%,
so all the way back, man, all the way back.
It's certainly we've come a long way since then. So.
Yeah. And honestly, it feels like we've come a long way since the last pod.
A lot has happened.
A lot has happened. We're going to get into everything. We are 6 weeks in, a lot to digest. Going to run through all the different injuries, benchings, trades coming up, and kind of the implications. And we're also jump in to a favorite segment from last year, the Dynasty Trade Machine. Because we're now at that point of the year, and I don't know if you guys agree, but I've already started to make moves by making the call of like what direction you think your team's going to go, especially in Dynasty. This is where you start deciding, am I going forward? Should I start looking to rebuilding? Personally, even though I started off 3-0, I don't think I got the firepower to really compete this year, so I'm kind of turning into a rebuild mode. So with that in mind, we figured this could be a good time to kind of talk through the strategies and give some examples of trades that we might be doing, but yeah, with that, I figured we just jump right in because we got a lot to cover. You guys good with that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we're going to jump in just to each of the positionals here and kind of break down some of the happenings that have happened over the past couple of weeks. So at quarterback, Anthony Richardson, looking like he's going to start this week. He missed the last 2 weeks with a hip pointer. And Joe Flacco actually got in and looked really good as he did last year. Anthony Richardson kind of looked pretty brutal before he got hurt there too. So we'll see how that impacts the whole team, but at least you're hoping for the rushing upside from Anthony Richardson, but there's a lot of other implications when he's starting. Derek Carr went down 2 weeks ago with an oblique, and Spencer Rattler last week got his first start. Looked decent, but we'll see what goes on. There's a lot of other injuries on the Saints as well. Gardner Minshew actually got benched last week for Aiden O'Connell. And Russell Wilson is now trending to be the starter this week, and Justin Fields is going to get benched after starting the season actually 4-2. It's probably the most wins I think he's had in his entire career. But just a little thing to keep a note: if Fields plays 51% of the snaps this year, that pick that the Steelers gave up for Fields goes from a 6 to a 4. So maybe some added motivation to bench him there. But with quarterbacks, what are you guys thinking here? And if there's anything else I missed, feel free to add.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I was just going to say with Fields, I really don't get it. You're 4-2, and it doesn't feel like Russ Wilson is that much of an upgrade to Fields, and Fields has looked pretty decent. And the pick is a good point, but you're not going to risk your season having that pick go from a 6 to a 4. So I don't really get it. I feel like until the wheels fell off, why wouldn't you stick with Fields?
Yeah, it
I don't know.
feels like if to me it feels like an upside, like a ceiling type move where um I think they want to see if maybe the ceiling for the team is higher with Wilson. Like I think things are going well with Fields. I don't like I'm not totally sure that they're getting through the AFC playoffs with Justin Fields. So I think it's worth it. Like it's not like they've been winning the games like all on his shoulders where it's not worth it to at least get a sense for what the offense looks like with Russ. And I guess the earlier you try the better. So that's like the only possible justification that I could think of. I'm not sure that I would have done it either, and it'll be interesting to see how it works out. It's
Yeah.
interesting, and like I know nobody cares about like the things that I bet, but last week, Adam and I saw that the Steelers were -1 at home against the Jets on Monday Night Football, like on the look ahead line, like before last weekend even happened, and we're going to be in Vegas, and we're just like, oh yeah, like we guy that we follow on Twitter gave it out. We're like, oh, this looks like a great pick. We should take it. So we both took it. So we both have like a Steelers -1 with Russell Wilson in that game where the Jets are now favored by I think 2 or 3 or something like that. So um, I would much rather Justin Fields be out there. And now it's going to be the Jets, the revitalized Jets with Devontae Adams and what have you. So I don't know that I love it. If we're being honest, I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't know that I love it.
I just
Yeah.
As someone who's invested now for this week in a team,
I just can't see Wilson being that much
it's
better.
almost like I'm a fan, and I'm just like, what are we doing here?
I bet the Steelers over win total because it was at 8.5. So that meant it would have been the first time Tomlin did not have a below 500 season. Which I was like, until I see it, I'm going to bet the over on that. It's been trending great so far. I agree. I think it's the upside play because Fields has been fine, but he hasn't been great, especially as a quarterback. He's been rushing a lot. Like for fantasy, his value has been coming from rushing. He's had two this last week, two weeks ago, and one before that. He's had one like good passing game where I think there was like a lot of points, but he's also playing the Colts, whose defense kind of stinks. So that I would think it's coming from like we have gotten by with this quarterback, but I don't think Fields has won the game. I think the defense is like elite, and that's what's winning the game. And Fields is just fine to keep the ball moving forward, but you want to try to level up, and maybe Russ can do that. Also, you got to say that Russ is more the vet, and that you brought him in here to be the starter. And if you go with the mantra that like you don't lose your job due to injury, then maybe they are trying to hold firm on that. But I think
Yeah,
it's more of an upside. It's like you you've seen the ceiling with Fields there, and it's not a lot of points that their team is going to be scoring. Basically,
yeah,
what about Anthony Richardson coming back?
yeah. I was going to ask you for a temperature check on that. I mean, I think that it's a tough situation that the Colts are in because I think that they probably realize they can win more games this year if they just continue to start Flacco. But is Flacco really going to win them the Super Bowl? Is he the long-term answer? And they got to get reps for Richardson. Like he needs the reps more than anything else.
He has
So
very little reps going back to high school.
yeah, he needs like just reps.
Yeah.
So I think they got to just suck it up and start Richardson for as long as he's healthy, and realizing that that might cost them wins in the interim. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree. Anthony Richardson, he can make some of the most miraculous throws, but he also makes some of the most boneheaded, brutal throws out there. And hopefully, him watching Flacco for a couple of weeks, he's picking up on a couple of things and learning from Flacco. Because like if he could learn and like start throwing a little bit more like Flacco, because he has the tools to do it. He again doesn't have the reps to really get it all in. I forgot how many games it was, but I think he's since high school. I think he started, what was it, like 16 games since high school, which is crazy. He's an NFL quarterback. He's started 16 games. Bo Nix, on the other hand, has like 60 under his belt. Like it's
yeah,
crazy.
5 year start.
Yeah.
Isn't that like the risk with Richardson though? I mean, he's literally hurt all the time. So if you're the Colts and he's going to be your long-term answer, I feel like you got to be a little bit concerned there. Is he ever going to be healthy for an entire season?
I don't think the coach cares because he got hurt, and then they put him back in. And the first thing they did was do a quarterback draw. Like,
Yeah.
how do you do that?
Yeah, I agree with Joe. Flacco's not the long-term answer, so you got to see what Richardson can do.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I feel like for fantasy purposes, it's tough to trust anyone on that team right now.
And last, I just want to throw out because I know Joe, you were watching him. What do you think of Spencer Rattler?
I thought he actually looked pretty good. I was pretty impressed with what I saw. The running was nice. He was making some good throws there. They were right in the game, and they gave like their defense has not been good.
Mm-hmm.
The last couple of weeks, it was real. I mean, like last week, it was really bad, and they were a team that I was looking at as like a bet on team, kind of like thinking, well, like Tampa Bay has had like a pretty easy schedule, and the one time they played a pretty good defense, their offense didn't perform as well. So, now they're like going to New Orleans, and New Orleans, like the defense was not very impressive. So that's that. I mean, we'll see what happens tomorrow night, but and it's a good defense, I think, but I was more. I'm far more like, well, I mean, things are literally like falling apart at the seams for their offense too in terms of health, which I'm sure we'll get to in the wide receiver section. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's
Tomorrow
not
night's
good.
game's
The
gonna be
vibes in
ugly.
New Orleans are bad
It's
at
gonna
this
be an
current
ugly
moment.
game
Yeah,
tomorrow. Tomorrow, I don't even think I want to watch tomorrow.
yeah.
But yeah, no, Rattler was good. He was. Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't he like the number one QB prospect like coming out of high school? At one point, he was like I know he was on that show QB1, but I thought he also was like one of, if not number one, one of the top prospects going to
He
college.
was. What was his? I think he was the. God, I'm gonna get this wrong. And he was. I think he was originally the starting quarterback at Oklahoma
Yeah, he was.
under. The hell's his name?
Was it Hurts who
The
beat him out?
coach. No.
Oh, I forget
Who's
his name.
now who went to USC with Caleb Williams? What the hell's his name?
Yeah, I forget. I know. I see his face. I know exactly what you're talking about. I
Yeah,
think he has a visor
somewhere
on.
Adams, just like come
Yeah,
on, Joe.
I know. Yeah,
Uh,
I'm with you.
but it was like he and Caleb were the two quarterbacks at
Mhm.
Oklahoma, like during that period of time, and um, then he went. Where did he go after that? He
Arkansas.
transferred. He transferred, not Arkansas. He
Uh,
transferred and had a pretty. I think it was another SEC school though. He transferred and had a pretty good um, senior year,
yeah.
and
So
like the pedigree is certainly there.
pedigree. That's what I'm getting at. He has the
Yeah.
pedigree. So he just kind of fell off, and he also, I think, people don't like him. He's kind of annoying and douchebag. But anyway, we'll see.
Sorry, Spencer.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Spencer. Don't listen to the pop, please. Run over to the running backs. This is quite the laundry list. So I'm just going to start off with a positive and then jump in some negatives. Joe Mixon, he's back after mixing a couple of weeks, and thank God because the Texans needed him. Devin Singletary has missed the past 2 weeks with a groin, but Tyron Tracy Jr., baby, has been stepping up and looking great. James Cook missed last week, and another rookie, Ray Davis, stepped up and looked great going against that Jets D on Monday night. Rashad White also missed, which gave Bucky Irving a starting opportunity. He looked solid, but Sean Tucker stole the show. A lot of it came in garbage time, but he was the running back one on the week last week. For all the Syracuse fans out there, we all know Sean Tucker, and he
Go
was
Cuse.
he was a top prospect. A lot of people thought he would be a top 5 running back going in the draft, and he had, I think it was like heart issues going.
Yeah, until he had that heart issue, he was going to get drafted high. So,
but he's great. So maybe he's coming back, and he was someone a lot of people took a shot on last year, and it just didn't really work out. And looks like maybe he's getting a role now. Jonathan Taylor has missed the last 2 weeks with a high ankle sprain. Trey Sermon and Goodson got the work this past week. Goodson actually shows a lot more burst than Sermon, so someone to keep an eye on. Travis Etienne got hurt again this shoulder early in the game and missed the rest of the game. And you would think Tank's Big D would get all the work, but he actually didn't. It was Dearness Johnson who got the bulk of work there, which is kind of interesting to see that breakdown there, especially with Tank, who's been good for multiple weeks. Brian Robinson Jr. missed last week. Eckler got the start, but there wasn't much rushing going against the Ravens. Jordan Mason got knocked out with a shoulder AC joint injury. He tried to get back in just enough for Mike Williams' parlay to hit, and then came right back out. And Isaac Guerrero actually took over and broke up a big run at the end of that game. Tajay Spears has a hamstring, potentially out this week, and Tony Pollard's going to get all the work. Jerome Ford got knocked out of the game in that running back situation, and all of the Browns in general is a mess, but Nick Chubb should be back this week. Foreman got some work. Pierre Strong was getting involved, so it's kind of a situation I'm personally trying to avoid. And Devon Achane, who got concussed 2 weeks ago, had to bye, was a full participant in practice this week, so should be going again. They got Mostert back, and Jalen Wright actually looked good as well 2 weeks ago. So a lot of backs to feed there, but I know those long lists, but feel free to jump in if I missed any. But also, who'd you like to talk about that I just touched
I'll throw in the Buffalo backfield, or a comment on the Buffalo backfield. It seems like it's a possibility. What I was seeing on Twitter when that first happened was like 1 to 2 weeks, so it is possible that Cook misses again. And I feel like all three of their running backs are really good. So they're, I do think, like, I picked up Ray Davis in one league, and I might hang on to him for a little bit just in case, because he was pretty impressive.
He looked good. Yeah, he looked really good. So no reason to rush James Cook back either if you're the Bills. So I can see Ray Davis getting another game and then also having some value after this week.
Yeah.
And then, opposite end of that, the Rashad White, Bucky Irving, Sean Tucker situation, I feel like is just a mess. I don't really think you could start any of the three right now with confidence, because who knows who's going to actually get the ball. And Dave, it's like you said earlier, I feel like White got hurt and that opened the door, and now there's no way he gets the full starting job back. And I think even the coach came out and said Tucker deserves more work. So that's going to be a rotating, probably hot hand situation that you don't want anything to do with.
And that's something in general that I've noticed, and I feel like it happens at the running back position more than any other position, just because that's more of a position born of just a kind of it, like getting the opportunity. Like that's what you need. If you don't have opportunity, you're not going to have value. If you get hurt and then backup back show value, more likely than not, you're not going to get the same workload when you come back. So if you miss multiple weeks, it could hurt your outlook beyond when you come back, depending on what those backups look like. So something just to think about. But like Rashad White's the exact example. Like his whole value came from his sheer workload. Bucky Irvin started to eat into it before he got hurt. He got hurt, now Sean Tucker is nipping at the buds. It's just going to be hard to see like White really bringing back value going forward. I want to.
What do you think about the Giants? Do you think Singletary comes back and just takes over the job again?
Read my mind, because that's who I was going to jump in on, is Tyrone Tracy. Not just because I own him everywhere, and I'm a Giants fan. No, because that is exactly the type of position. I don't see how you don't use Tracy going forward. And Tracy, a lot of people in the Dynasty community liked him. He's a converted wide receiver. He's only played running back for a year. So you were thinking Devin Singletary he's okay. Like, he's not explosive, and he's okay catching the ball, but like you need a more explosive receiving back on that team. And Tracy seemed to fit that mold. And what we've seen out of the last 2 weeks is he can definitely do that. And he's got some juice coming out of the backfield as well. He looks pretty good for a guy who's only played the position for a year. So Singletary has been solid. I still think he'll be the lead back, but you got to get Tracy more touches, I think, going forward and mixing things in. I don't know if you guys agree or not, but I'm very excited about what I've seen out of Tracy so far.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's why it's so hard to value running backs in Dynasty now, because, one little injury happens and a rookie steps up or something like that, and all of a sudden it's a 50-50 timeshare or something. And so it's definitely interesting. But yeah, I mean, Tracy's got to get some work going forward if you're the Giants.
How you feeling about sorry, Joe, you jumped in.
No, I was going to say, if nowhere else, then in the passing game, they can incorporate him. They could still bring Singletary back and have Tracy in there as a passing down back and get him like 3, 4, 5 targets a game. So,
yeah, I agree. And then what about the Jags running back situation? Because that to me is another one that I just I can't figure out how to value any of these players, or like who's going up, who's going down. I'm glad I don't really have too many shares of any of them, but what do you guys think?
If I had to own any one of them right now, I would prefer that it be Bigsby. because he's looked pretty good, and D'Ernest Johnson is in the twilight of his career, and ETN just doesn't seem like he has the longevity that you'd like to see. So for me in Dynasty, it would be Bigsby. Even in redraft, I almost kind of feel like, although D'Ernest got the work last week, I'd probably rather have Bigsby rest of season. Not to say that ETN is going to be out the rest of the season, but ETN wasn't doing shit even before he got hurt. So yeah, that's my take. It's probably an avoid. I'm starting D'Ernest in a desperation situation in one league, but I'm not happy about it. So I think I'd probably rather just not start anybody on Jacksonville's running back room.
Yeah, I mean, Johnson is definitely the one I would want the least, but sometimes you just got to start him.
I think you put up a decent amount of fab bet on that one, though, Joe.
I mean, I'm desperate.
He said desperate.
I started fucking. Who did I start in that league this past week? The Washington scat back behind Austin Eckler.
McNichols.
Yeah, McNichols. In a 12-team league, I literally started McNichols in my RB2 slot.
Think about how many Dynasty leagues are not starting D'Ernest Johnson, and Joe's dropping fab to start him in redraft.
I did drop fab. I actually lowered my bid too. Originally bid like 20, and then I lowered it down to 15.
That would have been embarrassing. Oh, man. Well, we'll move over to the wide receivers now. So one player, obviously, I think if you're playing Dynasty, you know this already, but we'll just touch on because we haven't got to speak about it yet, is Rashid Rice is out for the year with an LCL injury. Mahomes just took out his knee, and Juju actually stepped up in the game for the bye and looked pretty good in that role. I did bet his over yards. He blew past it, but Juju is like the original big power slot, so he knows that role very well, and that's where Rice was succeeding. So Juju seems to seemingly slide into it. Obviously, he's not as explosive, but we'll see how that goes going forward. Malik Neighbors, who even before last week, he missed the last 2 weeks, but before last week, even missing a game, he still led the league in targets. So Malik Neighbors has been like a revelation. He's insane. Should hopefully be back this week, and they're playing the Eagles, whose secondary kind of stinks. So if Neighbors is in, I'm going to be probably laddering his yards. So we'll see how that goes. Christian Watson looked like he was going to miss multiple weeks, also because he's Christian Watson. But he somehow came back and played last week and scored a touchdown. And then Dontavian Wicks actually got forced out with a shoulder, might miss for multiple weeks now. Brandon Cooks, we didn't talk about. He's out on IR with a knee infection. I don't even know how that happened. He didn't even have an injury and his knee just got infected, which is just gross to me. But Jalen Tolbert is stepping up, who I think is a second or third year wide receiver, looking pretty good. Marvin Harrison Jr. This is like, I feel like the story of this past week is just like early concussions that just ruined your week. Marvin Harrison Jr. got concussed to start, didn't have any catches. Current week's up in the air. Chris Olave got concussed early and fumbled, so got you negative points. They have a Thursday night game, so he's already out, rolled out for this week. Rashid Shaheed has a meniscus surgery going on, and determining if it's a tear, if it's just trimming it or fully fixing it, which I don't really understand how I don't get meniscus surgery, but trimming sounds weird to me. That you do that like, just trim it and we're good now. But if they trim it, he'll be back in a matter of weeks. He'll come back this season, but he'll definitely miss a lot of time. If it's a full surgery, then he's out for the year. So up in the air to see what happens there. But that makes, as Joey was alluding to before, the whole Saints offense looking pretty dim. And then finally, Nico Collins, we didn't get to talk about either. He got placed on IR. He scored a touchdown. Looked great. I actually hammered his 110 receiving yards. I was like, 76-yard touchdown. I'm like, early on, this is going to be great. And he looked fine. Then all of a sudden, he was just celebrating and then walking into a blue tent. And he got hurt. Questionable come back. Didn't come back. And he was day-to-day, then week-to-week, and now IR. So that escalated quickly. But before going out, he's looking like he might be ascending to like that top 7 wide receiver status currently. So, and then finally, I'll throw in not a wide receiver, but Dallas Goedert had a hamstring, and he's looking week-to-week right now. Honestly, the wide receivers on the Eagles came back, so I'm not sure how useful he was going to be anymore. But this tight end landscape is pretty brutal, so any tight end that you can get you hate to see be lost. But which of these guys would you guys want to dig into further?
I mean, for Neighbors, I was actually pretty happy to see the Giants held him out last week, and if they wanted to continue to hold him out, that was a pretty it seemed like he was pretty rattled from that concussion.
Yeah, he did not look good.
Yeah, so I'm glad that he missed the 2 weeks, and I kind of hope that if he's on the fence, they just hold him out.
He did go to a concert though, didn't he? I heard a lot.
Yeah, somebody saw him somewhere, right?
Yeah, a rap concert. People were flipping out about it.
The overworking situation with Neighbors is definitely something that I'm actually mildly concerned about.
Yeah.
I'd rather he not lead the league in targets on our 3-win team, 3-15. We're gonna go 3-15, and we're gonna take
while missing a week.
Yeah, we're gonna take years off this guy's life and career because we throwing it to him 16 times a game in losing effort. So I disagree with that approach. So that I feel like.
Yeah, when we said we want 1 million targets, we're like, that's hyperbole. We're not we don't
You got your wish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of concussions. Hopefully, a lot of these guys are back soon. Neighbors, Harrison, Olave. So, Nico Collins, I feel like a little concerning because, like you said, it kind of seemed like it came out of nowhere and just kept getting worse and worse. So, hopefully, it's not more than 3 weeks, but we'll see where he ends up.
Too hard.
Yeah, and then I'm curious what you guys think about the Green Bay wide receivers. I feel like that's another situation where it's tough to start anyone week to week because it's always Reed. Up and down. Yeah, but that's the thing. You got Reed, you got Wicks, you got Watson, you got Dobbs. It's there's 4 of them kind of rotating the big weeks. Reed has been more consistent, but it's a crowded room.
I'm a big Reed guy. I want that on the record.
I think we know that's on the record.
And I mean, look, Christian Watson is a little sneaky right now. I feel like he's being slightly undervalued because he went out hurt already. But when he's been out there, I mean, he had a big catch last week for a touchdown, and especially with Wicks getting hurt himself, Christian Watson is
sneaky. He's your upside play. I like having him if you can put him in a flex or double flex where you just need that upside shot. If he's actually your wide receiver 2, it's a little unsettling just because he has such big downside, but he can blow up for sure. And we'll see now that there's no Wicks potentially, that target share comes down. I know it's not on here. Tucker Kraft was banged up, so maybe more targets go to Watson, but it's Reed. You want Jaden Reed. That's what we want here, guys.
Yeah. I'm with you.
But in general, too, one thing I've been noticing, I know Ronnie said too, what is going on with all concussions? I thought they got new helmets. I thought, why are there so many concussions?
They all got to wear those caps.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the Guardian cap.
The Guardian cap, yeah. They need to start wearing those.
Yeah, it's crazy. I also, why doesn't everyone just wear? I know they don't look that great, but who cares?
Yeah, you may as well just have it be a requirement.
Just mandate it.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? I know people are they got an exception to wear something to make sure they don't get concussion. That seems crazy.
Neighbors isn't too worried. He's out at concerts.
I know. Yeah. It's a classic Giants. Aside from the injuries and benching, there was a couple other major news I want to touch upon. The biggest one that broke right after basically when Mike Williams didn't even get off the field after he got intercepted with a pass going his way. The Jets traded for Devontae Adams.
Also got concussed on that play.
Yeah,
we didn't mention him, but he blew the game and got a concussion at the same time.
I'm not sure.
Good job by you, Mike Williams.
I think he faked that concussion. He looked down and he's like, "Oh no!" I didn't believe that was a real concussion. I don't typically like to joke about this type of stuff, but that seemed too convenient.
It really was the whole game. Every time he got thrown the ball, just something horrible happened. He looked so bad.
And it was funny too because then after they got out, they're like, "Hey, they're looking to trade him now." I'm like, "You are looking to take him behind the shed. Can we send him to the Browns as punishment just for what it is?" But what do you guys think about Adam? How does it impact all the Jets, the key Jet players?
I think well, first of all, I think it's probably the best for Adams himself.
Yes,
You
definitely.
have to be pumped if
Yeah.
you're an Adams owner.
The rest, like Garrett Wilson's will not lead the league in targets, I think, as he currently is. But again, like I probably prefer that if I'm a Jets fan, because like I just don't think you prefer like your young wide receivers to be getting hit 15 to 20 times a game. So if they can more evenly distribute things, they Rodgers and Adams have a historical good connection in the red zone, so that's slightly concerning from a value standpoint for Wilson. But Adams is like on the older side, and he's mostly the same Adams as the last time these two were together in Green Bay. But it's been a couple years, so I mean, I'm excited for Adams, but I wouldn't be like running to trade Garrett Wilson right now either.
Yeah, I mean, long term, I get your view. I do think, he had a good start to the season, and I'd be a little concerned if I was holding him and he was my, top one or two receivers right now.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, we've even seen it with Lazard. You have to imagine Rodgers is just going to pepper Adams nonstop here, and, they have that connection. So I'd be concerned for this season, but like you said, long term, I think Wilson will be fine.
Well, depends on who the quarterback is beyond forward.
Yeah,
But
I was going to say Wilson hasn't been great up until now, the last few games anyways.
yeah, Wilson is a wide receiver too to me. That's like he was already trending that way to begin with, and like this kind of sealed the fate for me that like I just don't see the wide receiver like a wide receiver 1 or top 12 upside in him now. Is that his value to this point was because he got a stupid amount of targets. Like he wasn't doing a lot with his targets. He got 20 something targets and only got like 10 receptions on it. He got like 22 targets. So like he needed that volume to be useful. Now that is not there as much anymore. So, and that Adams is going to be the number 1 target once he's fully ramped up. So I'm sure there'll be games where Wilson has like big games, like that happens to like every wide receiver, and obviously he won't always get the primary cornerback. But I personally think you just have to lower your expectations for Wilson, and then even going forward, he didn't look like a true alpha, and the quarterback like long term now like. You don't know who's going to be after Rodgers, and now that Rodgers is here, Devontae Adams is going to be with you as well that whole time. So just don't see the ceiling case for Wilson anymore. I don't know if I'm too pessimistic on it, but like again, I'm not trading him. If you can get like a top 10 wide receiver, I probably would flip Wilson for that. Like I would trade Wilson for London easily. Like I don't know if that's something you guys, but I think a year ago, like you would never do that. But I would rather have London than Wilson.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I would. I do agree. I think Wilson's been trending down. There is some argument that maybe Adams comes in and he thrives a little more as a wide receiver too. But like you said, if that's what he's meant to be, then he's not going to have that top 10 value.
Yeah, and obviously Rodgers, I think his upside increased a little bit for especially in Superflex if he's your QB2. Doesn't hurt, and then Brees hopefully has a little bit softer boxes to run against, so maybe he gets a little upside of the rushing attempts. Another big trade. It was almost like right after the Jets made that, the Bills, who beat the Jets, were like, yeah, we also didn't like how we look. We're gonna level up as well. And they made a trade and got Amari Cooper. So they finally have a true wide receiver 1 on that team for Josh Allen, which desperately needed. But what do you think the implications on getting Cooper to the Bills is? Also, what about? I want to step back. What do you think about anything on the Raider side from losing Adams, other than Brock Bowers is just going to be the tight end 1?
Hopefully, Trey Tucker.
Who goose last week, right?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, I mean, like, and maybe like a little Jacoby Myers here and there, like between the two of them.
I was going to say Myers could maybe, get a lot of targets and have some value now, but I don't know. I wouldn't trust anyone too much on that team right now.
Yeah, I'm avoiding that team. But back to Amari Cooper.
Yeah, I mean, for Cooper, you're obviously super pumped if you've been holding on to him. True wide receiver 1 role now with Josh Allen doesn't get much better. And I don't know if it really affects any of the wide receivers' value too much that we're already on the Bills, just because I feel like we kind of already knew none of them were a real true wide receiver one anyways. And it's not like any of them have been crushing it. And now Cooper's going to come in and take that work. None of them have really been thriving. I guess Shakur's been decent, but I don't know if his value decreases that much with Cooper coming in because it wasn't that high to begin with.
Yeah, no, he's young. He's still got it. I think it's good news for him. It's probably bad news for Keon Coleman, who hasn't really seized the opportunity. And
Correct. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think Shakir, his upside's probably down a little bit, but in general, I'm not too worried. And he can play in the slot a little bit, and Cooper can hopefully make defenses stay back a little bit more, open up the middle of the field. But yeah, Keon Coleman's the one I was concerned with Keon Coleman going into the draft season, and I think part of this trade happened because the Bills realized like we can't operate with Keon Coleman as the number one outside X receiver. He's good for one or two like jump ball targets a game. Maybe they'll be in the end zone or not, but I think this kind of just like if you were thinking you got a wide receiver one linked up to Josh Allen, that's not happening. Cooper is fully taking that role, but we'll say.
What are your thoughts on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Cooper? Like, how high would you value him now?
Well, he's older, right? What is he, like 30?
he's not that old. He's older, but he's one of those like sneaky young guys.
I feel like he's been in the league I feel like he was like 23 for like 5 years.
He's 30. He's 30.
Yeah. He's 30. Yeah.
Yeah.
He got there. So he aged out.
I think his upside is high on Buffalo.
Yeah, I agree.
He's like he could conceivably have another 1 or 2.5 like good strong years in Buffalo here, which is not nothing. It's in one of the best offenses in football. It's pretty solid. So if you have him, you're pretty excited.
The targets he was getting from Watson, which were disgusting, he now gets like one of the best quarterbacks in the league with a cannon of an arm. And I think this obviously like helps Josh Allen value too. Like we saw like a very, very low floor coming out of Josh Allen a couple of weeks, which was brutal. Like, it was very low, which we were not used to seeing. I think getting Cooper raises that floor again because he has somebody who can actually throw to, and I think the whole offense will operate a bit better now.
Yeah. Agreed.
What about on the other side, the Browns losing Cooper?
Shit show.
Yeah.
From a fantasy standpoint, it's until they make a change of quarterback. I'm not like suddenly all in on Jerry Jeudy.
Did you see the tweet on it? I know the Ballers mentioned it, but I saw the tweet too. They're like, Jerry Jeudy has, with this trade with Amari Cooper, has risen in my rankings from the wide receiver 53 to the wide receiver 51. He's not really good. David Njoku does get interesting again from a tight end, just because you saw him dominate last year. Granted, it was Flacco just by getting a lot of targets. You got to assume he gets more targets now, and you don't need a lot to be good as a tight end. So that's someone who I'm maybe a little bumped to, but aside from that team's just a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
One other small trade, just throw it out there. Cam Akers got traded to the Vikings. He back to the Vikings, I believe he was there before. So not really much to do there. I think it's just a depth play. But just to know that he will not be a fill-in for if Joe Mixon gets hurt again, because he was not getting that role, except for maybe one game.
Yeah. It's also is it an indication that maybe Aaron Jones is more hurt than they're leading on? I don't know. I didn't get a chance to properly look at Aaron Jones updates today, but when I saw that trade happen, I'm like, is Aaron Jones missing more time than I thought? So I wonder if that's reading between the tea leaves. Maybe Aaron Jones is more injured. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, teams typically make moves like that when that is the case. But they also probably need more, because I don't know if they had anyone really behind Ty Chandler. So we'll say. But if anything, that maybe limits the hope that you had with Ty Chandler getting a ton of work if Jones goes down. So if anyone, I think it hurts Chandler's value the most. But I wouldn't worry too much about it because Akers didn't know if he hasn't anymore. And another running back who got signed, we knew Pacheco went down, the experiment with Steele, and P. Ryan was not really working out. They got Kareem Hunt, And Hunt actually looked great in this last game before the bye. He had, I think, like 20 touches or 20 rushes and had over 100 yards and a touchdown. So he looked great, getting a ton of work. How do you view this workload looking going ahead now? If and when Pacheco comes back this year, it's still up in the air if he comes back this year. But if he comes back this year, Pacheco's getting like 80% of the touches. Do you think he gets that level? Where's your confidence?
Probably. I think he gets his job back. I mean, I think it'll be almost entirely Kareem Hunt between now and then when Pacheco comes back, it'll be not the same volume of Pacheco that it was, but probably pretty close to it, right? Like, I mean, Kareem Hunt is in the twilight of his career, and if they could bridge the gap from now until when Pacheco comes back with Hunt successfully without him getting hurt, like I think that would be great for them.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I agree. I mean, at least next year, I think Pacheco goes back to what he was this year before he got hurt.
Yeah, Hunt will be 30 next year, so hopefully Pacheco gets that job, especially because I'm a new owner of Pacheco. I actually own him in a lot of leagues, so really need that. Anyway, any other major trends or things you guys want to call out before we get into the next segment?
No, not really.
All right, so I think it's time that we dial up the Dynasty Trade Machine. Don't really have any drops, but this would be when I would hit it if I did.
yeah, so we're back. This is one of our favorite segments from last year's, and I think last year when we did the Trade Machine, we didn't have Ride Dog on the pod with us. So happy to have
Yeah, I think I missed that one.
Ryan in here this time. So basically, what we're gonna do is I chefed up 3 different potential trades for our league, just involving a couple of the different teams, and basically want to know what your guys' thought is, like who says yes, who says no, if you agree with the logic, and yeah, so let's jump right in. So first one in the 3-pack of Dynasty NSFW Dynasty Trades is Team Clark Sauce trades J.K. Dobbins to Team Canelos for Marshawn Lloyd. And I have 2 versions of this one. So it's either J.K. Dobbins for Marshawn Lloyd straight up, or it's J.K. Dobbins and Tyler Algier in a package for Lad McConkey. And so the logic here is, and I want to know, like, what you think about the deal for each side. The logic is, if I'm Team Clark, I'm trying to trade Dobbins to a contender as soon as humanly possible, right? Because he's an expiring asset, and somebody can use him this year who's going for it, and he's serving no purpose on a team that is not contending. So, Canellis is a team that could use some running back help, and has a couple good young backs. Like I think a Dobbins for Lloyd swap kind of makes sense, just from like a potential. Like you kind of gotta like roll the dice and like buy a couple lottery tickets in Dynasty. And I feel like with Lloyd, you're kind of buying a lottery ticket. Josh Jacobs did just sign a contract, but and Lloyd has not shown any ability to stay healthy, but I think that there's definitely upside there, and Canelos also is very flush with young wide receivers, as we've discussed several times, right? So like someone like McConkey is dispensable for him, and we don't know what McConkey can or will be, but there's upside there, right? So like giving up someone like Dobbins and Algier, who are probably more valuable in the near term than McConkey, but definitely not as valuable in the long term. That was kind of my logic there. So what do you guys think about that one? Who do you think says no to that trade?
So my take, if you were talking Dobbins for Lloyd straight up, I would rather actually have Dobbins, I think. And I know it's crazy to say, from 6 months ago, but I think I actually would rather have Dobbins. So if I was Canelos, I completely agree with your logic. I would take that trade, but I don't think I would do it if I was Clark Sauce. But when you change it and you add in Lad and Algier, then I would take the Lad side.
Yeah, I'm in the same thing. I personally, I have like, I don't care for Marshawn Lloyd. I don't think he'll be very valuable in general. So like, I would
Yeah,
rather have Dobbins, and I don't think I would personally be targeting Lloyd and giving up an asset like that. But the other option that you threw out there, I actually really like that for both sides. I think that's a really good trade for both teams there because the Clark shows they need a wide receiver. That's what they need
yeah,
upside. And this is someone an expendable asset to Canales big time. Like Lad's likely not going to be breaking out his lineup too many times with the amount of wide receivers and young wide receivers he has going forward. I think he's going to be like wide receiver, like 6 right now at
Right.
best. Um, but he does need running backs now and going forward. And J.K. Dobbins has been great. I think will be good for this year. Tyler Jarrett is like a very sneaky, and I'm glad you brought this up because this is someone I actually have been forming an opinion about.
Weirdly interested in.
Yeah,
yeah.
getting interested in because
Yeah.
he is actually pretty good. He's very involved. I actually, when we get into the bet later, I'm betting on him. He's one of my bets because I think he is just very undervalued in general. He's a great runner. He's definitely involved in here, and I think he holds the record for the most rushing yards, or at least for the Falcons, rushing yards by a rookie running back. He's 24 and a half years old. But the thing is, he might be someone who gets like another contract when his rookie contract's out. And I think he has long term potential. But no one views him like that. Everyone views him as just like a backup to Bijan, but he's very good. And I think another team is going to see that at some point, and he won't be behind Bijan forever. So I see this as like it's a worthwhile bet to give up Lab because it's not like you're just playing for just now with the running back. There is this upside that Algier potentially becomes something in the future. So in general, I actually think this is a smart move by both teams. So great job, Joe. I actually really, really like that trade.
Nice. All right. So moving on to trade number 2 in our 3-pack. This is going to be a fun one. So we have Team Rosinski trading Tua Tagovailoa.
It has to be a 1-for-1 if that team he doesn't do anything else.
It's kind of a 1-for-1. Matt Rosinski trading a Tua Tagovailoa to Team Harry and DaCosta in exchange for Bryce Young and a 2025 second round pick. Now, hear me out.
Yeah.
I want to hear the argument for this
I'm
one.
waiting.
Team Harry and Dan desperately need a quarterback. Their Deshaun Watson situation is a situation that needs addressing and that they're obviously on the market looking to actively address. So Tua is a roll of the dice for sure, but he has indicated that he has no plans of retiring. It seems likely that he will play again this season. At this moment, he is not experiencing concussion symptoms. Like if I had to put my money on it, I think he will play again this year. So I think that it's a worthwhile gamble for them to take. And for Team Rosinski, I think that Tua is expendable for them. They have Jared Goff. They have Andy Dalton. I think that's fine with the rest of their lineup. I don't think either of those guys are. And this is part of it too, because they're starting Dalton, right? Like they have the added like if the Panthers go back to Bryce Young, then they got him too. So no matter what, they got the Panthers quarterback locked in.
Just what everyone wants.
Yeah.
That's the room you want locked down.
He's already accumulated quite a bit of draft capital for next year. And I just don't think for a rebuilding team that Tua Tagovailoa is like a long-term answer. Like he's not someone that you can really like count on for longevity. So yeah, I think if I'm Dan's team and I can get out from Tua and pick up a second round pick and like a lottery ticket quarterback. And if I'm Harry and Dan, it's it's definitely a roll of the dice. But if Tua comes back and plays this year, they can compete. So, what do you guys think? Who says yes? Who says no?
So it's where's the second? It's
It's
Hall and a second for Tua.
it's Bryce Young and a second for Tua.
Bryce Young and a second for Tua.
I think Dan and Harry do it. I don't know if Matt does it.
You don't think that Tua is? You think Tua is worth more than a second?
I think he's worth more than a second. I don't think Bryce Young is the thing I'd want as the more. You know what I mean?
I mean, like that. Yes, fair, but like,
I think that's okay. I think it's close. I think it's just I honestly don't think they go for Bryce. I think you change that piece and they get there like something else.
Like if it was just Tua for a second,
I don't know if that's enough either. I think it's like a different player upside. But who knows? I'm just so
my team was 1-5.
I'm a little more on the other side. I actually would take the second and Young for Tua. I don't know. I feel like I'm more out on Tua. Like there's definitely a risk there that
I would 1,000,000,000,000% take a second for Tua if I was in the situation.
I would too, because
of Dan's team.
Young Tua. I obviously understand what has happened to Young, but we've seen it with some other quarterbacks. He could end up on another team and revive his career a little bit, whereas you're getting a second plus him. I don't know. I actually feel like I would kind of take the other side.
All right, well, then maybe it's good if just all you need is us to be on the opposite sides there, and that deal gets done.
Nice. All right, and this is my last one. This will be interesting because I know that Dave has a strong opinion on at least one of these players.
You know, when I only have strong opinions.
Yeah, I could pretty much name the players you're going to say.
All right, so I have Adam trading Jalen Waddle to Team Mike Williams in exchange for Russell Wilson. And Xavier Worthy. Now, logic behind this one is Mike Williams' team has Mahomes and Rodgers, and although Rodgers is definitely an expiring asset, I don't think Russell Wilson is the long-term answer there either. Team Adam is 4-2, but with Daniel Jones as the QB2, and the Giants just losing Andrew Thomas, and the Giants just being kind of like a little bit unreliable. It's that's a less reliable quarterback situation for that team moving forward. And I think that at 4-2, you might want to like have a hair more security at the quarterback position for the rest of the season. So like maybe picking up like somebody would be helpful. So in this situation, it's like, if we're, again, like maybe this is just me being lower on the outlook for some of these Dolphins players while we're still in the Tua era here. But
I was just going to say a lot of this trade is impacted by Tua, who we were just talking about. If you believe in him, then Waddle's value is a lot higher.
But also like Tyreek is still there, and like, so yeah, I mean, I guess and if you're like, it also kind of really depends where you sit with Xavier Worthy too, who's younger and some might say is more valuable than Jalen Waddle, being on the Chiefs, being younger, like has a little bit more like of the upside still there. So curious, just in a vacuum, like not like team needs aside, what do you probably prefer the Waddle side to the Worthy and Wilson side, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, I think this is decently close, though. I think it comes down to whether you're a believer in Worthy, which I'm not. So
yeah,
I would take Waddle.
Yeah, I would go Waddle side, but like I see the argument. I could see teams going the other side as well.
I might I might lean towards the Worthy side. And like, when I was chefing up this trade, I in my head I had it identified as like, oh, Adam has a need at quarterback. And as I was like vocalizing it now on the pod, like I don't know that Daniel Jones is losing his job. Like he may, but like, is it likely? I wouldn't say it's likely.
If the record stinks and they don't want to,
But
and they want to be able to get out from his contract, in the playoffs it might be like fantasy
Yeah.
playoffs. But I don't think he's playing bad. I think he's actually playing pretty well.
No, that's right. Yeah, it would
Yeah.
it would strictly be like a
and the
Like,
thing with Wilson too is he's about to start, but if he doesn't look good, I
yeah,
feel like they may throw Fields
It-
back out there.
this
So
whole trade is all risk here.
yeah.
It's just like what level of risk do you want to play with? I Of all the players in the trade, and the reason I go Waddle side is that Waddle's the only player who I think is an actually good football player in this trade, like going forward. I like truly forward. Like I think he's a target earner, can get there. Now, situation is what makes this thing tricky. Worthy's never going to be a target earner. Like a right now, Waddle's bad stat lines with stat lines with a bad quarterback are just Worthy stat lines. That's just what Worthy does, unless he breaks up a long touchdown. That's just, so you're already kind of at the same level there. I don't. So like I think Waddle is a better dynasty asset now. If from the Mike perspective though, if they're giving up in Worthy and Russ for this trade, and you know the Tua situation, do you feel like you're getting more? Do you feel like your team's getting better this year because they're competing this year, and that's kind of what you're going for? Do you feel like Waddle's helping you win more?
I think there's
That's where the
risk,
risk
but
comes
if
in.
Tua comes back, then yeah. So
Yeah, and yeah,
I could see them
yeah.
doing that trade because yeah, I think if Tua comes back, Waddle does upgrade their team,
Joe, are you a
and then
Worthy guy? I can't. Like, I know you're not as strong as that opinion as I am on the player, but I don't know where you sit.
I am higher than you guys on Worthy, but not a huge Worthy guy. And I'm also a hair lower than the consensus on Waddle. Just a
Yeah,
hair.
I'm lower on Waddle too. I don't think he. Again, like I'd rather have Garrett Wilson than Waddle. Like
Oh
where
yeah,
I was. So
definitively.
like I think there's like a tier or two between the two.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And like, it's not. I wouldn't like smash Waddle over Worthy at this point, just straight up. Like it wouldn't be like a no-brainer decision. Like I like
If you
Worthy.
flip the teams, I think Waddle's smasher. Like that's where it comes out. I think Waddle's a significantly better player than Worthy. But I think
Yeah,
the
but
situation is what like I think is if you didn't have the Tua situation and the backups for Miami were so bad, I wouldn't be as concerned about Waddle. But
yeah,
the backups are just so bad. Like if you had Flacco as the backup for Tua, I would be like, oh, Waddle's fine. Like I'm not concerned about
yeah,
that. It's just like the backups are so bad in Miami.
yeah. All right. Well, that was fun. I'm
Yeah,
glad that we got some good dialogue going on there. Three
yeah.
trades where there was some good discourse for both sides.
So Joe, since you were
sound
cooking
one
these
one
up,
trade we would have made. It sounds like.
yeah, one of them. Like I mean, I think consensus is a great trade. I hope they do that one. Joe, since you were cooking these up and everything, what is like when you're thinking about trades? What's your style, like structure and kind of formatting a trade? Like, what's your thought process?
Yeah. So uh, I feel like I'm scouring teams to see. Well, like first of all, like for me, if I like decide like, all right, let's say that I'm in the market for like a young, like high value wide receiver, right? Like I'm looking for a team that has multiple young, high value wide receivers that they're like potentially looking to spare one. Um, and I'm definitely looking to like see on my side what I can like what value proposition, like what I can return that fits that team's need as well in order to, like make both of our situations better, right? Like I'm looking for like for example, right? Like um with Rosinski or with Harry, like trying to acquire a quarterback, right? Like Harry's got to find a team that has like enough quarterback depth to shoulder losing a quarterback. He's also got to find a team that wants to accumulate draft picks if he's like if the main thing he's looking to trade is draft capital, right? Like the first thing I would do is like go to the league standings and start looking at all the teams with the worst records and be like, all right, like who am I gonna like see if who wants to make a deal here? Like I think the most important thing to me is like hunting for a trade partner and then finding an asset on their team that matches what I'm looking to move or what I'm looking to acquire, rather than like hunting for a player, because you could want a player all like as much as like anyone in the world, and like if it doesn't make sense for the person who owns that guy to trade them, then you're just kind of like,
Yeah,
you're never going to get it.
Yeah,
So
it's not happening.
So like I feel like that like my approach is like, okay, I have a need. Like there's several different guys that can fill that need. And let's find a team that like it fits with. So that's kind of what I did for this exercise too. Just like tried to like look at people's teams and see at like a super surface level what their needs were, and then try to find a partner that fits based on those needs.
Yeah, I think Joe hit the nail on the head. You gotta, we're in the tight end market, so we've started to look at some of the teams with the worst records, and then we're looking at teams that have 2 tight ends, so that they might want to trade one of those tight ends.
I'll tell you what, I would fit that category quite well.
We did see your team.
I have a bad record, and I have a lot of tight ends.
Yeah, Joe, which way are you going right now? Are you gonna double down and try to keep winning, or are you gonna be rebuilding?
I have to decide one way or another.
But playing flags, boys. I'm rebuilding.
Dave was 3-0 and he was rebuilding. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, I looked around. I saw like the really strong teams. I just don't think I have the firepower to compete with that. Like I think I can be middle of the pack, but like middle of the pack is not where you want to be in Dynasty. So I'm deciding like I don't see how I can get there this year. So I'm just gonna reboot.
Yeah. It's not going to be a full rebuild for me, but I'll definitely be on the selling side. So,
yeah, and I know Joe, you and me have are probably our most sought after assets are our number one wide receivers, which again they're great rebuilding assets as well, so which makes it also really hard to give those up. Like you have Chase, I have CD Lamb. What would be the beginning offer for something like that you'd be looking for? Because these are like you have to overpay for these assets.
I think it's got to be, for me, it would have to be a combination of a like adequate replacement tier player plus high draft capital. Like for me personally, to trade Chase, like I would want a player that I could slot in, like that.
So like also, a Jalen Waddle.
Also, no, better than Waddle. Yeah. Better than Waddle. And like plus like a first round pick or a first and a second or something like that. Like it would have to be like several picks and also like a very high caliber player, because in my position, right, like my team like kind of stinks right now, and I'm 2-4. I'm likely to have a, let's say, top 6 pick if things stay on this trajectory. So like I can just keep Chase and also have a top 6 draft pick next year, right? To like trade him for just like let's say I were to trade him for like just like 2 firsts, right? Like then like I'm taking the chance that I'm going to replace him with somebody who's as good. But
you're hoping to literally just draft another Jamar Chase.
You're taking two shots to hopefully get a Chase, and there's not always a Chase in the draft.
Like I'm looking at like if I'm looking at like a let's call Jamar Chase like a tier 1 wide receiver. If I was getting back like a tier 2 or a tier 3 wide receiver plus a first round pick to like potentially like add like more on top, like and I realized that like if you put that into a
trade calculator,
it's not always exactly going to work out. But like
when you get to these levels of players, trade calculators don't work.
Yeah, like I just don't like in my head. Like I have like negative desire to trade someone like Jamar Chase.
You have to
So
persuade someone at
yeah,
that level.
yeah. So like if somebody wants to come and like blow me away with an offer, if they want him that badly, then I'm down. But like it's hard.
So what about some of these guys, which is kind of like a tier 2 on keep trade cut here, like an AJ Brown, a Drake London, a Brian Thomas Jr., a Nico Collins? Like it'd have to be someone in like that range for you to even consider with picks.
Yeah. So yeah, Nico plus picks would be too much because
I don't think you would get
Nico's definitely
Nico's
tier 1 up here,
kind of he's skyrocketing up. AJ Brown is tougher because he's older too, so I don't know if it's like someone like he's not old, and he's right at that tier. So I also don't see a team giving up picks in AJ Brown.
I mean, if you look at on keep trade, AJ Brown is 8, Drake London's 9, Brian Thomas Jr. is 10.
London and picks I could see. Because I don't think London has reached that level yet. I think I could see that being a type of player. So I was kind of the same boat. If in a player in that range of like say the wide receiver 10 to 15 plus like a high like a pick or a first and a second that could do that, or depending if there's a wide receiver, it has to be a young wide receiver where you still see a path for them like elevating, like maybe a London from a year ago or 2 years ago plus 2 firsts, like someone in like the wide receiver, I don't know, like 16 to 24, 25 range. I don't know if you have like the list up who are like the young wide receivers there, plus like 2 picks, 2 firsts or something like that. So I think is where like my starting conversation would go.
Here's what I would view as like a pretty good example here. Like Canelos went to acquire Malik Neighbors.
Oh yeah.
And in order to acquire Malik Neighbors, he needed to trade Brandon Ayuk, who's like at the time was like a comparable tier receiver, plus 3 draft picks, a first, a second, and a third.
Yep.
So I just feel like that is like I kind of like the perfect example where Neighbors' value like probably
is lower than Neighbors is lower than Chase.
Right, exactly. So like in that situation,
I mean, according to keep trade cut, Neighbors is actually the number 2 wide receiver. He's only below Jefferson.
That's keep trade cut gets crazy over picks and injuries, but also like. But at the time of that trade, that was like 3-4 weeks ago. Neighbors was not at that level.
He hadn't even recency bias.
Yeah. So I guess the main thing is just like
picks alone is not.
It sounds like it would be pretty impossible.
Well, I just like
you have to overpay.
I just don't even like. I most of the time wouldn't even bother. Because like it's just like, you know what, like if I were to try to like put together a package that would lure Justin Jefferson from Adam, it'd be way more than I would want to spend. So I just wouldn't even bother.
Yeah, well, pretty good trade talks there. And again, this is the time of year where you got to start having these kind of discussions and decisions on your own team. So for this helped out a lot of teams.
Yeah.
With that, we want to help people's wallets, Joe. So why don't you take it away?
Yeah. Let me.
Right. Have you followed any of our bets yet? We've been pretty profitable.
I've been following some.
The last actual pod, the parlay, hit, baby. That was a little 1-1 there, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. And guys, I just want to remind you before we actually formally get into this segment, as always, please check out our dedicated page over at signupexpert.nsfw, where we can help you to expand the number of sports books that you use, get the best of the number, have multiple outs, shop around, and get some bonuses while you're doing it. So again, head to signupexpert.com/NSFW. You'll see a nice convenient list of all the sports books that are available based on your location and unique sign-up offerings for the ones that you have not yet signed up for. So if you're ready to take your sports betting game to the next level, definitely go to our page and check out what options you have there and enjoy some of the nice new user bonuses and free bets, and maybe use them to tail some of the same game parlays that, like Dave said last week, got the first win of the season. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, we're profitable. Just takes one, boys. Just takes one. Yeah, but Joe, do you want to go first? Want me to go first?
Why don't you go first this time?
All right. So similar to the one that hit, I'm going to give you three plays that I'm going to personally take straight, and I like them so much that I'm going to put them together in a same game parlay. So the game that I'm focusing on right now is the Seahawks and the Falcons. And again, I always look for, because parlays are fun when you go for overs, let's be real. So I always look for teams that have decent offenses going up against not the greatest defenses there. So in this matchup, I alluded to one of the legs already. Tyler Algier, his rushing line of 38.5 rush yards, I think is far too low, especially for the amount of action work that he's been getting. Seattle's defense is 22nd against fantasy running backs on the year. It's not the greatest of rush defense, so I think there's plenty of opportunity for Algier to get that. Seems pretty low for me, and he's getting all the work, so I think that's a great line to hit. Kenneth Walker has his receiving line of 20.5 receiving yards. I also really like. He's been getting, which has kind of been leveling up the Kenneth Walker value on the year. He's getting a lot of receiving work. I think he has a 14.5% target share on the year already, which he was always known as a big rusher. But now that he's getting these, I think he was like 8 receptions last week. He's getting a ton of work. I think 20.5 receiving yards is going to be an easy line for him to hit as well. That'll only take, honestly, 1 or 2 receptions could probably get him there. So I like that line a lot. And then Geno Smith, over 1.5 pass touchdowns. He has not done that yet this year. And that is kind of an anomaly, in my opinion, for him. His TD rate is around like 2%, which is incredibly low. He's usually around, most quarterbacks usually around 4.5%. He's been around that for the past like few years as well. He's throwing a ton. He's got tons of passing yards. He should have had multiple touchdowns this past week. They were like toe on the edge, drop ball here and there, or call back on an illegal formation. I think he finally gets over the hump, gets over that hump of only throwing one touchdown. He gets them multiple this week. And Atlanta's pass D is 20th against quarterbacks, so I think the secondary is a little leaky, and Geno can take advantage. So I'm going to take all of those straight, but also if you parlay them all together, it's plus 460, so nearly 5-1 odds there. So come ride with me.
Some might say that he is due.
He is definitely.
Yeah, so for me, not a lot on the props. My life is chaotic right now, and I haven't had an opportunity to dig right in. But what I've bet so far this week, for whatever it's worth, the Steelers at a terrible number, -1.
We already talked about that one.
Come join me.
With the Russ Wilson.
You can get a better number.
Yeah.
I don't think you can find that number. If you do, you get crazy odds.
The Lions, I think that opened at like +3, and I didn't get it until a couple hours before we recorded at +2. But at Minnesota, I think that's a good spot for the Lions, and I'm buying in there on them. And the Browns, as disgusting as it sounds, getting 6.5, 6, something in that range at home against Cincinnati, who I think actually Cincinnati is terrible.
Don't make me do it, Joe.
Interdivision road game, and there's no possible way that Cincinnati is blowing anybody out in division on the road this year. They stink. So
yeah,
I feel like
those matchups are always ugly.
Yeah, I feel like getting that many points with a home dog in division, especially that division, is worth it. So don't let me down, Deshaun. Yeah, so that's what I bet so far, and probably a trillion other props to come. But I'm going to lock yours in right after we're done recording here. So
let's do it. And ride with us, guys. Come on, jump on in, and I'll be following Joe as well. I'm sure there'll be a lot of bets. He'll be in Vegas, so
yeah. Sometimes we'll win, sometimes we'll lose, and let's hope this week we win.
It's about the journey, guys. It's not about the destination.
We're also Ryan. I'm gonna actually request that you put together a little SGP this week for Vegas. Just
Ooh.
three
I could do
legs.
that. I could
Pick
do
a
that.
game.
I-
Three legs that you like. Just toss them out there. I
Yeah.
kind of subscribe to the beginner's luck thing, and I feel like your first like foray into the SGP game is going to be lucrative for us. So
I will say
sure.
my Derrick Henry over rush yards on the season is looking real good. So
Looking great, dude.
yeah,
You might hit that by midseason.
he's
Yeah, so
literally
I should be 1 for
What
1.
was it, 1,000 yards?
he's going to
No,
lead the league in
I'm
rushing.
pretty sure it was like 800 something, wasn't
No,
it?
dude, he's gonna break it in like 3 weeks.
Yeah,
3
I know.
weeks. He's got 700 right now.
Jesus Christ.
He's gonna hit unless an injury happens. So
Did you
knock
put
on-
money
knock
on
on
that,
wood.
Rye? You should have.
I got a little money on that one. Yeah,
Good. I should have tailed it. Stupid.
I got one more hypothetical for Joe, just because
Okay.
we were talking about Jamar Chase.
Okay.
So, top 2 dynasty wide receiver. Someone comes to you with a 2026 first, and someone like Brian Thomas Jr., rookie, in like the top 10, top 15 dynasty wide receiver ranks right now. Do you even consider something like that?
So you said 26 first. I assume you meant 25.
No,
Sure.
they don't have a
I
25.
don't have a
Because-
25, but yeah, let's say someone
Oh,
came
no.
to you with a 25 first.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say the fact that it's a 26 makes it like significantly less appealing because I'm a lot more of like a.
So someone
mediocre-
comes to you with a next year.
It
I'm just
wouldn't-
curious if that's like the situation you guys would consider where it's like a rookie that could potentially ascend to that level plus a first round pick, something like that.
I would need another pick, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like I'm not sure that I would love the idea of
It,
Brian Thomas being the player.
I
it's
like
nothing
Brian
against-
Thomas. Yeah,
It's nothing against Brian Thomas. It's just
they don't
like-
have enough track record to be comfortable in it.
like we were naming
Yeah.
some other guys, some other older guys earlier. Like I would be much more likely to trade Jamar for like AJ Brown and a first or AJ Brown and picks because I feel like I have more of a guaranteed couple of years of like wide receiver 1 domination from AJ Brown than Brian Thomas, which is like kind of like we're still kind of hoping he ascends
Yeah,
to
it's
that
hopes and
level.
dreams for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
I'd be fine with like an older guy who's
What if it was 2 first in Brian Thomas?
I think that's fair value.
That's where like I would have the
but
conversation, but I think I'd balk ultimately.
Yeah, ultimately I think I would.
But
yeah.
like that's
because-
where I'd start the conversation.
Yeah, just because like I just would much rather have Jamar.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it's at a certain
I
point, I feel
agree.
like it's like part of the like, he's like a cool player to have on your team and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
I don't know. I mean, you want Jamar Chase. I mean, I'd send you a first and Thomas right now for him. So I was just curious where the line would be drawn.
Oh yeah. So we said we were going to mention this. I'll throw it out there. Last thing before we break. There was I made a trade in another dynasty league that we had. I'm not going to tell you which side I was on, but I want to know what your take is.
Mhm.
So the trade was one side was Rushy Rice and a 2025 Rushy Rice, Keon Coleman, and a 25 second, right? Was it a second, Dave?
Yeah.
Rushy Rice, Keon Coleman, and the 25 second for Jordan Addison and Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Ooh.
So
What
Curious.
was the first side again? Rice,
Coleman,
and what was the pick?
Coleman, and a second, and a late second.
Was it 26 or 25th?
Hold on, give me one second.
I think it might have been 26 second.
It's close. I see the value on both sides. I think I'd.
It was 25th.
25 second?
Yeah, 25 second.
Yeah, 25 second.
Coleman. I mean, we were just talking about Coleman, and I just feel like he's not it. But I think Rice could be one of the more valuable assets if he comes back healthy. But I think I would lean the Addison JSN side.
Yeah, so that was I was on the side acquiring JSN and Addison.
Yeah, I think that's what I would lean, just because I think overall they're more valuable than the other side. There's
part of it too is like I have like a team that I think can compete this year. So like moving on from Rice was something that I like just was trying to do. Like literally just like, hey, if I can flip him into like 2 upside young startable wide receivers, Coleman we talked about, and like second.
I'm trying to get out from Coleman.
I think your side is way more solid. The only risk is that Rice comes back and really does turn into a stud like it was looking like he could. Yeah. But right now I would take your side.
The thing with Rice, because like I was having this conversation with someone else as well, and Rice to me feels like now he's just a first round pick because you can't use him this year and he's likely going to be suspended next year. So he's not going to be that useful at the beginning of the year of next year, just like most rookies that when you draft are not that great to start the year. And now, and we mentioned this earlier, because he's missing so much time, it gives other players opportunities to carve out roles that maybe take away because he doesn't have a great route tree. He's got a very specific power slot, runs 3 different, basically just slants, but certain roles and gets a ton of targets. If other people build up roles, take some of that away, and he's not getting all those targets, his value could decline. He's going to be out a long time, and then they could draft someone. They could get someone. Obviously, there's just a lot of risk as well. He could go immediately get his job back and do that, but there's also like a lot of things now that can go wrong that tanks his value going forward. Where like a first-round draft pick, you don't have a lot of value until you draft him, and it could go either direction. So that's kind of how I view Rice now. He's kind of like a first-round draft pick in there. So, Joe, you bought players with picks, basically, is kind of how I view it, which I think that's a great move. Like, I think that's a smart move. Yeah.
I like that side.
And also, the biggest risk to Rushy Rice might actually just be Xavier Worthy. So, see what happens.
I mean, if he has the opportunity to carve out a role.
He's got a year to figure it out. So,
yeah, all 150 pounds of him. Rashid Rice drives faster than Xavier Worthy weighs. Anyway, before we go, I just want to give a quick update on the high and low scores since we're a couple of weeks skipped on there. 2 weeks ago, Scott Rapp actually took the high score, and he is turning his season around with a score of 180.52. So he's taking the title there with being sandwiched in between 2 weeks of Kropa actually being the high scorer. But Scott Rapp's the high man now. And the low score, 2 weeks ago, I scored low score, but it was the highest low score on the season. So I just want everyone to know I'm the best low score. But then this past week, Canals took the lowest score on the season so far with 77.6. That'll definitely be beaten now that bye weeks are starting to pop up and more injuries. But Canals, low man, Scott, high man.
I got to say congrats to Scott, man. He was in full sell mode and then all of a sudden put up the highest week of the year so far, and now his team is like on the up and up. It's crazy.
He's looking good. He's 3-3. His team's looking stronger. And he actually has a first round draft pick again. So we'll see. Yeah. He bought. I almost got him to bite on a sell me trade, and now I'm the one selling. So we'll see. But anything else before we close things out?
Nope. No.
All right. Well. Hope everyone enjoyed the pod. Thanks for listening. And make the decision on rebuilding or buying, and hopefully the trades help you. Thanks all.
Episode of the NSFW Dynasty Podcast. Tune in next time.